What's going on YouTube? This is Squids. It has been almost a year since I have done a video. This is definitely something that I'm going to change, and we are going to get back into this. Life has been different, but we're back. And there's a series that I've been wanting to talk about for at least the last 20 weeks, because it has been on my mind, and every episode has had me kind of frustrated or really into it, and then wanting to just wait till it was done to get that final scene, because, oh my gosh, I love this genre, but sometimes this genre makes you want to pull your hair out. And that would be Watarikun is about to collapse, or, Watarikun no ga Hokai Sunzen. And when I first seen this was going to air, I didn't know what I was going to expect, right? Because romance, drama, comedies / love, I wouldn't even call this a love triangle. I'd call this a love circle, because we've got one person that's into two people, and then you've got another person that's into this person. So you got those three things right there, but then you got his friend that's also into the other person that's into this person, and it's just this whole crazy circle going on. But it's been keeping me interested, and especially with last week's episode, I have been nothing but pleased. So obviously we've got our MC Watarikun, and he's just your average high school boy, especially with an anime where he's weak, useless. However, he is a good example of a person in some extent, besides his crippling anxiety and indecisiveness, while taking care of his sister, Suzu. And she is, at least in the first half going into the second core, a third grader / fourth grader. We come to find out that obviously their parents had passed away, and they are living with their aunt, who is I think she's an office worker. I'm not quite sure, but at the very beginning, she seems very standoffish. She's not very likable, but she lets them stay there. And more or less the fact that they've been kind of tossed around the family for reasons that we come to find out, obviously, that their parents got eloped very young in high school because they did get pregnant with Watari. And so, they're doing that. And right off the bat, we kind of learn about Tachibana. And she is a childhood friend of Watari and Suzu, back when they lived at their childhood home. And they had this garden and everything. And more or less, one day she just kind of destroyed their garden. Nobody really knows the reason. We did see a little bit of foreshadowing a little bit longer down the line with Suzu kind of seeing somebody, but not really exactly knowing the reason why. And we kind of get that revealed to us later on. I do appreciate the way that the storytelling is going, though, how they slowly clue us on some things. You kind of forget about it a little bit in the background, and then it pulls you back in with remembering those types of things. And I very, very highly appreciate that. However, back to the present, we come to find out that Watari is into this girl named Ishihara, who is this perfect role model schoolgirl who gets good grades. All the boys like her. She's got big breasts, the cliche girl, right? And before I really delve more into it, I really always get that trope, because it's one of the older ones at first, always appears to me, would be Nisekoi. Always that kind of not necessarily that this is exactly like that series. However, it is interesting, where you've got the childhood friend who is a love interest. And then you've got the girl that obviously the MC really likes, but seems quote unquote unobtainable, and then so on and so forth. But he obviously is very interested in her and doesn't think he stands a chance. And even his best friend, Toki, or not Toki, oh my gosh, this isn't Metalocalypse. Tokui. And he's kind of this average middle ground character. He's gonna be kind of like the angel devil on your shoulders. However, he seems to know a lot of things, and he's also kind of in the mixture of this, which is, we're going to get to in a little bit here. But he's interested in Ishihara. And so Tokui is I can help you out. You kind of like her, blah, 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 blah. And then kind of in a little bit, Tachibana moves back out of nowhere. She hadn't had any contact with Watari or anybody in years. I think it was 6 years, if I remember correctly, 6 or 7. And she comes back, right? And she instantly like is just all up on Watari and like kisses him and everything, and like it's really weird. And so the aunt, she's kind of like, I don't want any girls around, yada yada yada, which we come to find out later on is because obviously you can kind of guess on context, but Watari and Suzu, but mostly Watari-kun or Naoto, were born very young by their parents, so obviously the aunt doesn't necessarily want the same thing to happen to him in context, right? And so childhood friend Tachibana really likes Watari, right? But Watari at this point likes Ishihara. But deep down inside, you can kind of tell he still has feelings for Tachibana. And I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out, because it's definitely kind of self-explained. Obviously, there's blushing and how he acts as a person and all that fun stuff. But at this point in time, he's after Ishihara. And so, he doesn't think he stands a chance. He kind of hangs out with her a little bit. And at this point in time, Suzu is like obsessed with her brother, right? The classic little sister trope. But she doesn't like anybody that he hangs out with except for Tachibana, because she remembers her. And so Tachibana kind of offers to help at this point, because for some reason, to kind of like relive their childhood, Watari decides to do a garden at their aunt's house. Kind of something for him and Suzu to do. And so Tachibana helps out with this, right? And Ishihara, kind of in the background, likes Watari because she thinks he's like this perfect, role model, not a horny boy and all that fun stuff. But she's also kind of another anxious ball, right? And so she sees Tachibana kissing Watari, and we get this like feeling where she's like this whole time trying to kind of approach him and ask him to do things like go out and hang out or go shopping and all this fun stuff, but is very hesitant because of Tachibana, right? And this is where, it's kind of fun, because in the background you get this gist that Tokui is very interested in Ishihara, right? But doesn't say anything. And at the same time, Tachibana is kind of talking with Tokui about all these things, kind of like behind the scenes a little bit. And it kind of builds up as the series goes, and I really enjoy that. So not too far into the series, Ishihara and Watari kind of like sort of get together finally, right? Ishihara and Watari kind of hook up finally. And so when this happens, obviously Tachibana is not very happy, right? And so she kind of sort of keeps her distance, but not too much at the beginning, because Ishihara likes Watari, but it's this very immature love feeling, right? And so while that's all going on, she wants to be on the same level Ishihara does as Tachibana, so she like secretly buys these condoms out of nowhere and like invites Watari to her house. And he gets to the house and meets her mother, and they're kind of like hitting it off, whatever. And she goes to go pick up their brother from swim class. And while that's all said and done, she brings him up to the room and she's trying to have sex with Watari. And luckily, the mother comes home because he's an indecisive little fucker and stops the whole thing. She sees the condom because he knocks him over, puts them in his bag, acts like he brought them over, but in reality, they're obviously Ishihara's. And so he puts them back and decides, I'll just take the blame. And she decides, kind of like, oh, I'll bring him, whatever. And she has a talk with him, pretty much telling him, like, she's obviously very childish and she doesn't want him to date her. And like, it's this whole thing going on. Like, she realizes that they're both children, especially her own daughter, because that's a main reason she's kind of been gatekeeping Ishihara, because like she kind of stayed home a lot in her childhood, didn't get to experience things. And at the same time, she's also a teenager and obviously doesn't want her to get pregnant. Because she even like describes, obviously all teenagers have like emotions and they're horny and everything. So like there's that. And then Watari, it kind of goes on the self-defense, claiming that, Obviously, he doesn't want to do that because of his parents' experience and, so on and so forth. And she still kind of is on the edge. Doesn't mind if they date, mostly in public spaces. So, for a while there, Ishihara and Watari are meeting at McDonald's and kind of talking and everything about that and going on these slow little dates. While, at the same time, Tachibana's kind of in the background, not necessarily trying to break them up, but obviously kind of show Watari about how she's wanting him to be into her. And like at the same time, he's clearly into her because he cares about her so much and he always checks up on her and like make sure she's okay. And while this is like, kind of going on, Watari does get a side job. And we find this girl named Makina, and she is this little kohai of his that used to be in track and field with him back in middle school. And she is now in this different school with a, what's the word I'm looking for? Not a scholarship necessarily, but kind of sort of for track and field. And we kind of find out a little bit about her, which isn't super important at this point in the anime at least, but she's this girl interested also in Watari, but he's very much not interested in her, so on and so forth. But that's kind of going on, right? He's working this job, trying to save up money for Ishihara and him to have a quote-unquote future. And like, then you've got Suzu, who in the background this whole time is starting to like grow up a little bit on the side. And like, even though it's only been, so like maybe a year at most, I think, if I remember correctly. And now she's like having these like really adult conversations. And I will say she is like the comic relief / best thing about this show. I absolutely love everything about Suzu. She is hilarious. But this is kind of where things get really rolling, and I really freaking love it. It is like, obviously, Ishihara and Watari are not doing so hot. And I mean, they are, but they aren't. And we get this conflict, right? Where we come to find out that Tachibana's like leaving on a train right now, right? She's just leaving. And Ishihara tells Watari, because Tachibana runs into Ishihara and like tells her that she's leaving. And like, obviously, Ishihara is putting a test for Watari and Tachibana to see if they really like each other or not. And so he goes to say goodbye. She drags him on the train, brings him to their like her house in Tokyo. And like, we don't know much about Tachibana's backstory at this point, which is really kind of cool. Like I said earlier, it's kind of mysterious. We kind of get small pieces here and there and what's going on. And we come to find out that Tachibana is actually living with an adoptive family. And we also get to learn that there is a Watari 2.0 who is this guy, right? He's this blonde guy who ends up being her adoptive brother. And it's the same guy that we've seen taking her earlier on in the series in this flashback. We've seen a couple times that Suzu remembers seeing her getting taken by. And so we get to this inn, and like, obviously everybody knows who he is, but he doesn't know any of these people because she's obviously talked about them. And obviously we've got a 2.0 to replace the original Watari. And so he's there with her, and everybody thinks they're dating, but they're not dating. And he kind of clears that up with, the receptionist. And we get dragged there because Tachibana thinks that they're dragging her back so she can become the head of this place that her adoptive parents own, which is a, I don't know if it's an onsen, but it's definitely an inn for sure. And lo and behold, they do want her to start running it. However, she doesn't want to do it. But the least that they want from her is communication, because clearly she's blocked them off moving to where she was for school and everything. And it's been, I think it was 6 months. And so like, there's that. And we kind of get this backstory with the receptionist and, Watari 2.0 about how he is the, replacement and brother. But at the same time, their adoptive parents wanted them to get married. But with obviously Watari being in the picture and them faking a relationship, they didn't push it on her and told her to contact her. So it's this whole thing kind of going on, right? And they head back, right? And this whole time, Ishihara is like freaking out because Watari left his phone on the train, so he didn't contact her. And, his aunt's kind of freaking out, but he calls them up and lets them know. And they come back, right? Things are settled there for the most part. And then this is where the story really starts taking off so far, is like Wataru kind of gets to this thinking point where he's like, what do I do? I clearly have feelings for Tachibana and Ishihara. And at the same time, they got the school festival coming up, right? And kind of like right before that, if I remember correctly, he does break up with Ishihara. And when I say that, I mean Ishihara actually breaks up with Wataru. My bad. Because she doesn't understand exactly how she feels necessarily with him being so concerned about Tachibana. She doesn't feel comfortable about it with her insecurities. She breaks up with him. School festival is happening, right? And obviously, like I said, Tokui likes Ishihara, and Ishihara's mother likes Tokui because they were childhood friends and everything. And, you know, his parents own this floral shop, yada, yada, yada. So, things are getting interesting, right? There's this rumor, quote unquote, there's a curse that if you kiss this person at the school festival bonfire, that you will end up falling in love with them. Right. For the rest of your life. So obviously, you know, Tachibana gives him this, you know, Wataru's ultimatum that he's got 2 weeks to decide if he wants her or not as a dating interest. And at this whole time, Ishihara really regrets asking or dumping Wataru. And obviously, Tokui's like, look, you know, he tells her about this curse and tells her also that, like, you know, maybe if you kiss him, then, you know, he'll be into it, you know. But obviously, he knows it's just like a whole thing. But she's like ignorant and young and full of bliss and feels like, oh yeah, this will definitely work. And obviously, well, Tachibana is giving Wataru this like timeline because A, the curse thing, B, she also knows that Ishihara is going to do this, and C, on top of everything else, this boy needs to make a choice. He can't just drag these two girls on. And there's a clear answer. But obviously not to him. So, you know, life kind of goes on. He's working his job, going to school, yada, yada, yada. Missing a bunch of details. Not really important. We get to the school date, or the school, gosh dang it. We get to the fair, the school festival. And Ishihara is working a maid cafe. Tachibana is working as a ghost in some horror show. Wataru is cooking at this cafe for that Ishihara is also in, because they're in the same class. And long story short, they go outside and Ishihara is talking to Wataru, and some guys are trying to pick up on Ishihara because everybody in the school just is obsessed with this girl for some reason. And he tries to stop one guy knocks him out. Tachibana comes out with her teacher. The teacher runs the people away. Ishihara has to go back to class. Tachibana takes Wataru to the infirmary. And, you know, he's doing whatever. Ishihara is really sad because this is where she wanted to talk to Wataru or kiss him and all that fun stuff to meet after. And Tachibana's there while he wakes up. And she's like, well, did you make a choice? And he's like, And he's like, he gives her a clear answer of no. But he also tells her that he's also telling Ishihara no. And the main reason is because he loves both of them, and he can't make a choice because he loves both of them. The most dumb answer you could ever give. However, Tachibana gives him a kiss and says bye, like she's never going to see him again, right? And she makes that kind of clear. She leaves. Ishihara at the end of the night is there at the bonfire. We don't really get context, but you see her crying and she runs away. And obviously Wataru told her the same thing. So, some time passes. Tachibana is talking to Tokui and tells him that she's leaving. She's transferring schools, not to tell Wataru and anything, period. And that's about it. And so after that happens, Ishihara and Wataru just become friends. We get like a 3-month time skip. And obviously, Tachibana's gone. Ishihara kind of slowly becomes friends with Wataru. Wataru barely talks to Tokui because of this whole thing. Because Tokui tells Wataru that him and Tachibana are dating, even though she's gone. Because that's what she kind of, you know, perceived him. So he didn't follow her. But at one point later on here, he's looking, you know, Wataru is looking for Tachibana, but he's not getting any clues or anything like that. But his aunt tells him, Wataru, that he needs to go to his old childhood home because there's a laptop there that she needs info from because the landlord's about to demolish the building. So he goes there, he takes a train there and everything, and When he gets there, he searches for the laptop. He doesn't find anything. And we meet this gal whose name slips my mind. However, she's semi-important, not really per se, but she's walking out with this item that he thinks might possibly be the laptop by the way that it's shaped and everything. And the fact that it starts raining and she doesn't want it to get wet while they're hiding. And so he goes with her to her house or apartment and they're talking and he's like, well, I got to take that thing because it's the laptop. And they start talking about it. And you come to find out that she is the landlord's daughter or granddaughter, one of the two. And it's not at all what he thought it was. It was actually these lemon bars that it is her grandma gave her. And so, like, she invites him to work because he kind of like explains his difficulties to her. And she invites him. And she works at I guess a gal bar, a gentleman's club. And all the girls listen to his problem about how he's likes, Ishihara and Tachibana and like all this fun stuff. And long story short, she gives him this like, I guess, kind of a example of like, if you and the two girls are out on sea and one boat came, you can only save one person, who would it be? And, in his head, he thinks of obviously Ishihara to get on the boat. But at the same time, it's like you care for both of them and it's like you're dragging one down. It was this huge reference per se, like a huge like wake up call for him of who he would pick. And so we also come to find out that somebody was there earlier looking for like something as well. Well, once he's kind of come with this, come to terms about this and heads home, we find out that Tachibana was there looking for this photo that was on the laptop of him and her in front of the sunflowers, which was actually on this laptop, which we come to find out got destroyed when they were children because Suzu actually jumped on this laptop. And we find out that this laptop was actually from Watari and Suzu's, it was their dad's, which they got from their aunt, which this whole time we thought their aunt didn't really like them that much, but come to find out, she gave that laptop to their dad and they kind of like talked back and forth all the time about life and they ended up becoming really close and she was saying some embarrassing things, I guess, and that's why she wanted this laptop back. I don't know if it was necessary for the memories and for their family not to find out, but either or, it was kind of wholesome. Finally get to see the aunt kind of open up a little bit. But other than that, we also find out that Tachibana is looking for this photo, which is kind of important for a little bit later on here. So, well, that's going on. We find out this is finally where it happens. We got a school trip. I know I said it earlier, but like it's kind of crossing my mind, and everything. But we get a school trip, and obviously Watari and Tokui kind of make up a bit. And then Tokui's like, I never was mad at you. You just kind of quit talking to me, obviously. But obviously, Watari's like, do you know where she is? And she's like, no. He's like, no. She hasn't contacted me. Like I can show you proof. Like she's telling me to stay away. And so they go to this trip, which was originally supposed to be in Kyoto, as I said, and it ends up going to Okinawa. And they go on this trip to Okinawa, and we run into Tachibana, right? Like, not necessarily, Watari does not, but Tokui does. We find out that she's going to this private school on the other side of Tokyo, and it's just kind of crazy, But she asks, what the heck, who aren't supposed to, nobody's supposed to know, and she gets really pissed at him. And she's like, how'd you know I was going to be here? Because originally, I guess I forgot to mention that Watari was not going to go on this trip. He was just going to work because he doesn't have any friends in his class. And, come to find out, Tokui's kind of a sneaky little motherfucker because he's ended up like adding a bunch of people from the school and finding things out and like everything else. And he's just playing spy, which is a good friend at the same time, but like kind of sus. And so this whole time, everybody's like especially Ishihara doesn't want Watari to find out that she's there, that Tachibana's there, because one of the other classmates that are there are also rooting for her to get back with Watari, one of those things. But accidentally, on the third day, Watari somehow blinded and ignorant finds out that Tachibana's there, and he mentions like, I swear I've seen her, and Ishihara and the other girl like, I can't, Ishihara's like, I can't lie, like she's here, but we've been hiding it from you. But Tachibana doesn't want to see Watari for obvious reasons because he's a pussy that can't make up his mind and decided neither of them, and even though she was the clear answer. And so You know, he comes up with this kind of genius plan at the fact that Tokui's got his inside person that does all the work, and they start trading notes with each other, because at first he tries sneaking into her room and gets in trouble with the teachers, and so he finally comes up with this idea where he's got quote-unquote leverage, right? So he tells, you know, Tachibana, I've got that picture you've been looking for, because, oh yeah, to mention from earlier, that girl that he met that was at his house, her mother or grandmother, I can't remember, like I said, found a USB with all the pictures on it and actually sent it to him, so he has a copy of this picture now. And he has this as leverage, and she's like, just give me the picture, I don't want to see you. And he's like, no, that's not how this works. And she's like, well, then nothing, you know, whatever. And so finally they come up with this idea, and by they I mean like Watari and Tokui and the guy that's been kind of doing back and forth messaging. And they go on their last day for trips, because Watari's class is staying another day, but Tachibana's school is not. So Watari and the plug, Mr. Headphones, the one that's been doing the messages, switch places actually and switch uniforms. He goes to the other school's event. Tachibana finds out that it's Watari. Obviously, they're going to get in trouble if they get caught. So they kind of sneak off to the side because she's just going to go to the bathroom. And they get to this place that Watari has been scouting out, and it's this huge sunflower field. And he tells her, you know, he's like, you know, I have the picture. I really miss you. This really sucks. What are you doing? And she's like, I want nothing to do with you. You're pretty much just spineless pussy. And like, long story short, like he gives her the picture, and like she agrees that, you know, she will see him, because he pretty much finally admits that he loves her, just her. So Ishihara is, well, with 6 episodes left in the series, at this point in time out of the picture, which is great news for Tokui, because now he can go for Ishihara. However, Tachibana is not going to make it easy, because she gave him the easy way out, and he just assumed she'd be there. So she's like, look, we can meet up in Tokyo, and she takes a picture of him, and this has her background, but she's like, I'm not going to make this easy for you. And he agrees. So this man's finally made up his mind after 20 episodes so far at this point to be with Tachibana, but that was the end of the last episode, and now we got Ishihara. Who knows what's going to happen with her? Like I said, I hope her and Tokui get together. But then you got Suzu, which I'm interested to see what her opinion is. You got Makina, who, oh my god, who knows what that little freaking Kohai is going to do. And then on top of that, we've got the drama with Watari 2.0 at their mother's house. And all together, it's this cluster of love everywhere. A stupid MC, the obvious choice was the childhood friend, and then the Suzu, the sister, for commentary. Overall, I think so far this series is really great. I think, if I remember correctly, not that I ever take it seriously, but I think the Mal score is actually like a 6.15. Not very good. And let me be honest here, there has been way better series of this genre. However, this one has actually kept me pretty well entertained. And to the extent of it's very cliche, you hate the MC, there's the girls, there's the obvious choice, there's the friend, and everything working out like that. However, I do feel like it's just that right amount of mystery and spice that I feel like it's going to be one that I end up really enjoying, and not necessarily giving a great rating, but I feel like it's definitely going to stay in one of my top series of this genre for middle to slightly higher grounds of ones that I'm happy about, you know? And to that extent, it's been quite a year for anime that I've been gone. I'm not going to say there was anything good, but there wasn't anything that great. It's not going to be like 2026 where we've got Frieren, we've got Oshinoko, we've got ReZero, we got Mushoku Tensei, we've got just so many dang shows coming out next year. This year I needed something to fill that gap, even with, you know, romance and comedy, and this one actually hits the spot better than I thought it would. But other than that, you know, I don't got too much to say about it, except for I'm really glad that that's happening, and I'm really excited to see what happens these next 6 weeks before this series ends. Maybe I'll be surprised. Maybe something else will happen. I'm really excited to see what the drama happens at their mother's house, and I'm really excited to see what happens with him and Tachibana and Ishihara and Tokui. I'm just really excited. overall. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments, what you guys kind of feel about the series. Obviously, if you hate it to death, if you enjoy it and kind of feel like a different aspect necessarily to yourselves, or just anything like that, just let me know. Thanks for watching. If you stayed this long, please click the like button, hit subscribe. It really helps me out, and I will see everybody in the next video, which will be rather soon. So with that being said, this has been Squids, and I will see y'all later. Peace.